Welcome back, Seekers of Grace. I'm your host, Mara, and I hope you're ready because today we've got a little stardust in the air, the kind that reminds us the universe is always moving and always inviting us to dance along with it. And to help us tune into those cosmic rhythms, we have another Italian here today. Don't worry, she don't sound like me. She's also part American and part Irish. I'm so excited to welcome today's guest, the wonderful and talented Laura Campagna. Laura is one of those people who just lives and breathes magic. She's a writer, a vortex healer of the highest levels of training, a tarot reader, and an astrologer who's got such a gift for making the cosmic stuff feel really down to earth and approachable and practical. Laura will be sharing her in-depth astro forecast for all signs, giving you a sneak peek into what the stars have in store for us for the rest of the year. Laura, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Mara. It is such a treat to be here on Seekers of Grace with you.
Before we dive into your forecast, I'd love for our listeners to get to know you a little better. I really, really love the way you combine tarot with your in-depth knowledge of astrology. Could you explain us the way you read tarot, what it means to you?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. And it's always nice to meet fellow vortex healers and connect via the magic of the internet across countries and borders. And I know I finally got to kind of meet you in person last year in London, which was so lovely, even though it was brief. But yeah, I think that there's something really special that kind of unites us all when we are seeking to understand ourselves and the universe and divinity more intimately. And for me, I came upon tarot when I was pretty young. I grew up in the Boston area in Massachusetts in the United States. And so I was lucky enough to have access to a city where I could buy myself my own tarot deck and just start kind of playing around, really not knowing what I was doing as a teenager. And I always recommend that people, if they're seeking answers, a lot of the time we know intuitively the next right step. We have this sense of, okay, the path this way might be a bit easier, or the path that way feels blocked, but sometimes it's hard to trust that internal knowing. A lot of us are not raised to give a lot of, validity to our intuitive sensing, even though it's such a rich source of information and a beautiful way that we can connect with the universe and divinity. So I read tarot just kind of figuring it out for a really long time. And then when I got more serious into healing practices, and I do energy healing, vortex healing. I also practice meditation. I really began to see how tarot could be this incredible tool for awakening intuition. And so I've been teaching it in the Boston area for about, a little less than a decade, almost 10 years. And I really like to encourage my students to use tarot to kind of open up their own personal intuitive sense of knowing, which is going to be different for everyone. But the cards, because they have these beautiful images on them and they're pictures, they're nonverbal, it seems to be a really wonderful way that a lot of people, if they're drawn to the tarot, just naturally develop, you could call it psychic ability, or a way of divining that also helps you trust yourself in moments when you're not using the tarot.
That makes total sense to me because I tell you what, even if it's really hard to read, you need to know the cards. So you really need to know it inside out to be able to give a good reading. But when I pull cards for myself, I actually noticed this, which made me I think my ego is like, oh yeah, you're really good at this. You would be a really good reader.
I bet you would.
Because like eventually, I pull some cards and I go and check the meaning of the card.
Mm-hmm.
And like my intuition, as you said, my own intuitive sense of knowing knows that that is the message that eventually cards wanted to give me. So thank you for that. I will be carrying on the way. My next question will be, how does being a vortex healer reflect in your practice as a tarot reader or astrologer? I think maybe a better way to phrase this question will be, what impact did vortex healing had in your practice as an astrologer and a tarot reader?
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like so many people kind of develop their own way of reading and sensing. And for me, there's often an initiation into the mystical practices or occult studies, things like that. And for me, I went through this period of a very sad loss and breakup, and I kind of moved back to Boston during this winter where there was just so many blizzards that everyone got snowed in for like several months. And it was really, really difficult. And I just turned to the tarot and to astrology and to meditation and to energy healing as a way to kind of get through this difficult period of loss. And they all ended up kind of blending together in this incredibly supportive and beautiful way, because a lot of times, with the tarot, sometimes people are like, oh, I want my cards read, but I'm afraid of what they're going to say. I don't want bad news, or I don't want them to tell me something negative. And that fear is just inherently a constricted place in us, right? When we are relaxed, when we are trusting, when we're open to life, there is just this sense of kind of being willing and able to connect and go with the flow. But when we're afraid, we get tense and we shut down, and we can't actually open to the good things that the universe wants to bring us, or feel the pain that sometimes is just naturally occurring. And with astrology, there's different planets, and some planets provide us with beneficial and enjoyable experiences. Everybody likes Venus, the goddess of love and beauty and harmony and relationships and friendship. And Friday is Venus's day, and we'll get a little bit more into planetary magic attunement. But everybody likes getting dressed up and feeling cute and going out and having fun dates on Friday night, right? Getting roses or chocolates or just doing lovely things for ourselves. But most of us don't want to experience the other side of life, which is like difficulty or conflict or struggle. Even though, ancient people we've known throughout human history that these things they're natural, they're inherent, they're necessary even for growth and development and character building. It's just a part of life. But we can also face really difficult periods of loss or scarcity or deprivation. And one of the nice things that energy healing can do is it can help us just to relax and to breathe into these constricted places, or places where we might be in fear or avoidance or hiding, and help us open to life and connect with hope or possibility. And it also can help us maximize the good, because if I'm, in a place where I feel confident and I'm going into say a job interview I really want, and I feel like, oh, the universe has my back and I'm in a really good period right now, I'm just naturally probably going to be more at ease and myself than I would if I'm really anxious or nervous or insecure. So I have found that through my practice, I offer these double sessions where We do a little astrology, looking at what's going on in people's birth charts, how they're getting activated by the planetary transits, and then looking at the tarot and kind of connecting with the archetypes, and then doing a whole vortex healing session where we release any blocks to people kind of moving towards their goals. And it's actually incredibly complementary, and some of my favorite sessions to do are the double sessions because you really come out on the other side, not just feeling like there's a path forward, but also feeling like you have the resources to meet that, walk that path and meet whatever is coming your way.
Wow, as I said, Laura, you are one of those people that just lives and breathes magic. And I didn't know your vortex healing sessions actually run that way. That is so magic and extraordinary. And you mentioned this being open to life, which made me think about my next question. As you are an advanced vortex healer, therefore, with this advanced training, it comes really advanced awakening. So this awakening itself, I feel it really opens up to life and brings this quality of surrender, especially in in our darkest moments, which doesn't mean it's all roses and flowers and the dark moments suddenly become beautiful. No, it's still going to hurt, but still there is an opening in there. There is a surrendering. This is openness, I will say. So my
Mhm.
question will be, how did awakening change your life and perception of life? And also, how does awakening reflect in your practice as an astrologer and a tarot reader? Like, what are the impacts that awakening had in your practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Yeah, in the vortex healing community, a lot of us are coming from spiritual backgrounds where we have been, seeking, and many of us are devotees of Amma or have a history of studying meditation, and teachers like Eckhart Tolle or Ram Dass or Adashanti, who are people in the West who have had awakening movements as the result of their spiritual practices. Or I guess Eckhart Tolle, not so much. His was more spontaneous, but who have become, really great teachers at guiding people along the path. And I think that, this idea of the end of suffering and equanimity with what is, that was very appealing to me as a goal. I am someone who, from a very young age, I kind of struggled with insomnia and just things that made me feel like I can't really get to the root of this issue, health problems from a young age, digestive problems. And ultimately, what I found was a lot of people were saying the same thing, a lot of spiritual traditions, which is that the purpose of our life is to awaken. And what that means is going to be really different for a lot of people. In the vortex healing community, we think of awakening as, well, one of the ways it's described is just not having that identification with the core sense of I. So losing that sense of ego in the heart and being able to live from this more free place where, I'm still a person. I have all the conditioning of my lifetime and past lifetimes and genetics, and I have my preferences, I have my cravings, I have my aversions. And obviously I have desires and goals, but I also don't believe that my thoughts, my feelings, my ambitions, my possessions, my wealth, my status, my property, that's not who I am. That doesn't define me. That doesn't make me the person that I came here to be. Who I am is, an eternal spirit soul. I was never born. I can never die. My true nature is love and light. And so as I progressed in my vortex healing journey and I went through these experiences of having, strong energetic movements, it actually brought up a lot of kind of past life trauma that I didn't expect or enjoy. And just feeling, I've been really, for many, 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 many lifetimes, I've been very, very identified with pain and suffering and being a victim or the things that have been done to me. But that isn't the truth of who I am. That might have impacted my energy system to this day. But actually seeing how the ways in which, since I've been practicing vortex healing almost for a decade, that stuff doesn't trigger me and it doesn't hold me and it doesn't consume me the way that it used to. So there is this really beautiful process that I've gotten to experience that I think is like a true gift. I think it's a true miracle of grace, where the things that really used to cause me a lot of suffering, it's not the same anymore. But at the same time, it can be difficult because we all have to live in the world. And the world is a troubling place and it can be a very disturbing place and it feel like a very unjust place. So how do I make friends with the present moment? How do I become a channel for love and light if I want to see the world, if I want to live in a peaceful world? How do I practice peace? So all of these things are kind of how I have, what I've struggled with in terms of embodying the awakening movements that I have experienced in vortex healing, because I think it's really profound and very cool to kind of have these moments of disidentification. But, if I'm still an aggressive driver in Boston traffic, then I don't know how awake I am.
That's
So,
something for me to meditate on if you see me in London traffic. It's actually great because I think it really brings up all my issues. Like I find it very meditative. I'm like, oh, wow, where
absolutely.
does this come from? Oh, wow.
Exactly. I'm so peaceful in my house with my cats, but how am I doing? I'm in gridlock. Yep, exactly.
Thank you. Really wonderful. I'm going to go back to tarot actually.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm saying this because I've seen a lot of tarot readings and I admit I go on YouTube and I scroll and I get like hooked by the title and I think that,
Nice.
it's the algorithm, it's spirit through the algorithm. So I click on there. I feel that many tarot readers, they kind of project their own conditioning into the reading. So I wonder if you feel the same, because maybe it's just my impression. What is your process to stay true to the truth, as we say in vortex healing?
Yeah, staying true to the truth is a good one. It's a good goal. I think that every tarot reader, and I think this is true for, astrologers and writers, and yeah, we're always connecting with people's consciousness, right? So the quality of their consciousness is going to be reflected in the words they're saying and the reading they're giving and the interpretation that they're offering. And one of the things with tarot that I suggest that was a really helpful practice for me to get to know the cards better was actually keeping a journal where you go through there's 70 cards in a kind of standardized deck. Tarot originated in Italy and there's been many different variations and things like that. But now in, what we think of as kind of the prototypical deck that came out of London, the Rider-Waite Smith deck in the early 20th century, there's 78 cards, but there's 22 major arcana, which are kind of these rites of passage, big chapters in the book of your life, these archetypes. And so it can be really helpful to, when people are trying to get to know the cards, to write down, what's my association with the teacher? Did I have nice teachers growing up? Did I have an amazing mentor? What's my association with, the more paternal authority figure? Did I have a really loving father? Did I have a really stern coach? Did I have a mean principal? Just like all of the different archetypes are kind of gateways into our past and our future. But if somebody hasn't done the work to kind of dig into their own relationship with these universal figures and experiences, then they are definitely just going to be projecting what they think of as the truth of that onto the reading. And that might ring true for some people, but there is not one correct interpretation of a tarot card. And obviously, the Tower card can represent the worst catastrophe somebody's going to go through, something really scary and destabilizing and unexpected, but it also can be liberation and freedom. So it really depends on the context and who's going through it. But I I always encourage people to kind of pay attention to what is coming up for them when they get a reading or hear a reading. And you might really vibe with somebody on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, and that might be the right reader for you right now, which is fabulous. But if that changes, that's okay. And if the readings help you to feel more connected in the world, I always say that's the point. It's supposed to strengthen, it's supposed to reveal our relationship with life and kind of empower us to make choices and strengthen our ability to walk our path. If it makes you feel afraid or stressed out, or, they said you're going to have a bad day, so now you're just waiting for, your train to get canceled, then I wouldn't listen to that channel anymore. But yeah, I think that it's really interesting. There's a lot of different readers, and you can kind of feel into the quality of the consciousness that's being offered. And to me, that's an important discernment practice.
Wow, thank you. I never heard anybody saying this. This is such a great piece of advice. And the practice which I shall undertake myself, not really because of tarot, but just as a self-discovery. So yes, to journaling and association with the archetypes in the major arcana. I love it. Sure. I think maybe we should get into the Astro forecast, although I do want to make sure I'm asking this question. And I'm talking about your pagan child rubrica, which I saw when I signed up to your mail list. By the way, everybody, you should sign up to Laura mail list. So much value in your mail list every month. And you even put all these astro charts, which I can't read, but I still have a look. Oh my God, that's great. But yeah, there is this pagan child rubrica, which I personally, when I saw it, I thought it was such a wonderful resource for if I will ever have a kid. So I wonder if you can tell us how that originated, what's the idea behind it, and to who is aimed to.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. Yeah, so I developed a series of children's books called Pagan Baby with a local artist in the Boston area named Catherine Sherwood, who approached me actually during the pandemic. We were bored, stuck at home. And, she said, I'm raising my child and I want to teach them about the traditional pagan holidays and a lot of what we think of as the Wiccan holidays, the 8 days of power when the sun is at its greatest peak in the sky, or at the solstices, or the darkest, longest night, the winter solstice, the equinoxes, which we're coming up to shortly, the balancing points. These different days were taken from the Celtic tradition. And, I had the opportunity to go to Ireland this summer, which was so lovely. I hadn't been there in a long, long time. And, there's this acknowledgement of, yes, this is how we as ancient Celtic peoples developed. And it's about time. It's about living in harmony with the seasons. It's about the land and, really listening to nature and what is the earth doing. And, in the United States, we have this culture of always producing, always being busy, always, go, 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 go. And especially, I love London, but, when you're in these big cities, you can kind of lose the sense of just watching the leaves change. It's really different. So Pagan Baby developed out of my friend's desire to teach their child about just the natural rhythms of the seasons and these holidays that people have observed for since the dawn of time, really. If you go to Braniban, Newgrange, and in Ireland, the megalithic tomb, it's an alignment point with the winter solstice, and it was created in 3500 BCE. So that's, a really long time ago. People have been saying this is the most important thing we need to pay attention to. And it's Pagan Baby is a book series that is really beautifully illustrated, and it teaches about what planets and signs are activated during each holiday and what the light is doing and what the earth is doing, and offers suggestions for creating little rituals and altar. And it's designed for kids, so it's meant to be really accessible, but it's also, I think, pretty fun for adults. And it's available through the website paganbaby.club and as a downloadable PDF. We have been offering it as an ebook. We haven't, unfortunately, found a publisher to bring it into print. So if anyone's listening and they want to check it out and they feel inspired, feel free to reach out and get in touch. We've had a few offers actually from cool publishers in the UK, but it hasn't worked out. It hasn't been the right fit for the book. So we're still looking for a wonderful home for Pagan Baby. But if people are thinking, hey, the autumn equinox is coming up, I want to celebrate which is Thanksgiving, the harvest time, the festival of Mabon, then, you could order that book and download it and have something really cute to read on your tablet.
Wonderful. How lovely. Shall we start the Astro forecast?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun to kind of talk in big picture about what's going on and what's coming up. And, this year, 2025, has been pretty wild. I don't know how it's been for you, Mara. You shared your birth chart information with me. To cast an accurate astrological star chart, you need your date, your birth date, time, and location. And when I saw your chart, I was like, oh my goodness, these transits that have been happening have been really activating Cancer and Aries. So I won't say any more about your personal chart, but I was just like, oh my goodness, this is it's been an intense year. And so, we can talk afterwards about how it's been for you. But the planets are usually moving in a, forward direction, and life is kind of going in a way that's like, okay, things are developing. And for example, when Venus is retrograde, the planet of love and relationships, we want to make peace and make art and make babies and make friends and make love. But when Venus goes retrograde, there's more of a sense of what isn't working in relationships and what is difficult about partnership. And friends, can have conflicts come up and things like that. And 2025 has really been this year of a lot of change. And it started out with kind of a lot of difficulty because we had Mars, which is the warrior planet. It represents our drive, our motivation, and how we kind of like get up and go and the gas in our tank. Mars is connected to the sign. It rules the signs of Aries and Scorpio. So if you have any Aries or Scorpio placements, you can really think about how was the beginning of the year because Mars was retrograde from December through January and February, and it was retrograde in Leo in December and in Cancer in January and February. And this was just a really difficult period. A lot of people felt like, I don't have the motivation. I can't get things going. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to be living. Interpersonal family dynamics were really difficult, things like that. So from December through the end of February, we had a Mars retrograde in Leo and Cancer. So people would have been feeling that really intensely if you have planets in either Leo or Aquarius or Cancer or Capricorn. And then we had Venus go retrograde in Aries, and Mercury, which is the planet of communication and commerce and travel and, technology to some degree, like social media, go retrograde in Aries. So from March to April, we had Venus and Mercury retrograde in Aries. And so essentially the first almost like 5 months of the year, there was like no forward motion. We weren't making progress. We were really like digging into intense things. And a lot of people felt like parts of their life were kind of being tested or falling apart. It doesn't mean good things didn't happen for people during those months. I know really significant things happened for me and other folks, but it was really a challenging time. And then we had all of these planets change signs. And we had Neptune move into Aries, which is really significant because Neptune is about our dreams and our relationship with divinity and longing for spiritual transformation. And it hasn't been in Aries since 1875. So that was really significant. We had Saturn move into Aries. So those two planets being together is very, very powerful. There has been something about bringing our dreams into reality this summer, but it has not been easy because Saturn and Aries feels like there's this kind of need to fight, but the fight doesn't always go well. And it can be at the expense of peace and harmony and balance, the Libra side. So we had really this huge digging into Aries with the retrogrades. And then we had Neptune and Saturn move in and start to try to restructure this area of life. And why I'm starting with that is because Saturn has now moved out of Aries as of September 1st. So yay. All of the Aries folks, you get a little break from now until February of 2026. So the good news is that kind of the pressure to create structured change in that Aries area of life has been lifted and removed. And you can really think about, okay, what felt like it needed to go or it needed to grow over the summer. And now that Saturn has gone back into Pisces, we can kind of do some integrating and we can think about making change in a more gentle way, which I think is going to be really, really helpful. And this is true for all the cardinal signs. The cardinal signs like to initiate change, but they're not always good at sustaining it. So the cardinal signs are Capricorn, Aries, Cancer, and Libra. And the good news is we did have this really challenging Mars retrograde in Cancer that lasted honestly from like fall of 2024 all the way almost to May of 2025. So, Cancer folks really went through it for a period. And now Jupiter, who is the planet that is the giver of gifts and the bringer of blessings and the one that wants to improve our quality of life and help us to expand and increase faith and possibility. Jupiter is transiting through Cancer from June 2025 to like early July 2026. So there is this really gorgeous 1 year period of getting to manifest your dreams and, going towards the growth that you maybe hoped would happen, but wasn't available at the start of 2025. It's now available this fall. So Jupiter is going to be showing you what it wants to create in this area of life over the next several months. And it's definitely going to be easier to make that happen starting in October. So, if you're like, well, I have my son in Cancer and my life hasn't been perfect since June. Don't worry. We haven't gotten to feel the full wonderfulness of what Jupiter wants to bring, but it's still coming. It's on its way, and pay attention to the inklings that you have got. And it's definitely going to depend on where Jupiter is in your chart, which an astrologer can help you figure out. But just to say that Cancer and Aries had a lot of challenges, and now there's much more kind of relief and possibility this fall. As we are talking and recording, Mara, we are in eclipse season. So I hope everyone is doing well in September. It's kind of the end of what I'm thinking of as like the more chaotic part of the year. Eclipses are catalysts. They bring about rapid change. They bring about new sudden endings and new beginnings, and they can be fabulous. Like they can bring about things that we really want to happen, but it can happen so fast or so abruptly that it can feel a bit destabilizing. So we're having eclipses in September. We just had the first one, the Pisces full moon eclipse on September 7th. And we're having the Virgo new moon eclipse on September 21st, right before the autumn equinox. So Pisces and Virgo, September is a bit of a chaotic month for y'all. I know that's difficult because Virgo likes to get life orderly and be tidy. And I have definitely been feeling the need to like deep clean my house during Virgo season and really kind of scrub away whatever chaos happened this summer. But eclipses don't always let us have our plan exactly the way we hoped for it. There is this sense of needing to, as you said, Mara, kind of surrender to what wants to manifest or is going to manifest. So definitely mark the dates of September 21st as the Virgo new moon eclipse just before the autumn equinox. And that might feel a bit bumpy. It might feel a bit uncomfortable because the eclipse is opposite Saturn in Pisces, but I really encourage folks to try to take it easy, even if you feel like you need to do more this month. It might be like more is less. And Pisces is going through a big wrapping up of Saturn, which is the planet that brings structure and asks us to take responsibility for ourselves and also encourages us to grow towards a level of mastery, what we want to achieve in life. So, Saturn entered Pisces in March of 2023, and it hasn't been in Pisces since the 90s. Saturn moves really slowly and takes about 30 years, 20 and a half years to go through the whole zodiac and really puts pressure on us and whatever area of life it's transiting through. So since March of 2023, there's been this pressure for Pisces to manifest the dreams that they've been, cooking up. And Pisces is known to be a little bit indecisive and have a hard time at making decisions. But I've really seen a lot of Pisces folks over the last couple of years been like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna, people who work for themselves being like, I'm gonna open up that storefront. I'm gonna like sign the lease. I'm gonna commit. So there's this sense with Saturn of commitment, of signing contracts, of like making bonds and really trying to like bring something to life. And we know that it's harder to live things out than it is just to dream about them. But we have until February of 2026 for Saturn to finish up this transit in Pisces, and then it won't be back for another 30 years. So yeah, good luck to all the Pisces with completing that assignment. And the fall begins with the sign of Libra, which is about balance, harmony, justice, equality, and fairness. And it's ruled by the planet Venus. And Venus is going to enter Libra. And this always brings a lot, like a boost and a sense of harmony and us being able to do the things that we are hoping to accomplish in terms of diplomacy and mediation and things like that. So I am going to encourage everyone to kind of note that the start of Libra season on September 22nd is going to feel really different than it will once Venus enters Libra on October 13th, because we'll get kind of this sense of, okay, we've put in the hard work to try to make things more balanced and equal and fair, and see things from other people's point of view. And now we're going to be aided in kind of reconciliation and getting along, which I think will feel really nice and is really necessary after such a kind of contentious year. And, the autumn equinox is the beginning of the lunar time of the year, when we start to have more night than day in the northern hemisphere. And so, the sun and the moon, they trade off every 6 months. The sun gets to kind of take over, and we have the growing light, and we have more day than night. And then the moon takes over, and we have the waxing light, and we have more night than day. So the fall is the harvest season. It's a time of reaping. It's also a time when we start to spend more of our, we go indoors, we're more internal, we make space for dreams. We kind of take stock for what has happened this year and ask ourselves, okay, what do I feel proud of? What have I accomplished? What was it that I was hoping to manifest? The winter solstice is always a period when, as kind of astrological witchy practice, I encourage people to set intentions for the coming year. And then around the autumn equinox, we say, okay, what has happened and what do I need now with these last 3 months to feel complete in closing out the year? And the new moon is an opportunity to kind of set intentions and wishes in an area of life. And we have the new moon in Libra on October 21st. So that looks really lovely. And then we enter into Scorpio season, which is one of my favorites. Do you like Scorpio energy, Mara? The witchy Halloween vibes?
Yes, it's the season for me to watch Harry Potter like there is no tomorrow.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, the Scorpio season is such an enjoyable time for magic and connecting. The veil is thin. We remember the ancestors, we connect with the other side and think about how precious life is. We get this just kind of brief time on earth. And so Scorpio season begins on October 22nd. And the nice thing is that we've had Mars in these signs where it doesn't really do well. And as I mentioned, Mars is like our motivation and our drive and our passion. And Mars is going to enter Scorpio on October 6th. And it's just going to feel so different. It's going to be like, okay, I can really get things going. I can really make things happen. And there's a focus on emotional truth, healing, and transformation during Scorpio season. So I think that we're going to feel kind of able to go after what we want, not just in the outer world, but internally, spiritually, and interpersonally during that time. And there's a big full moon in Taurus on November 5th. So the lunar cycle is one that I work with a lot in my astrological and magic practice. And at the new moon, we set intentions. And then 6 months later, we have the full moon in that sign, and we get to see what's manifested. So on November 5th, we have the full moon in Taurus, which is going to be a blossoming of whatever seeds you planted in May. So there's always kind of this sense of looking backwards and then releasing and shedding and letting go so we can make room for the new. And the last sign of fall is Sagittarius, which begins on November 21st. And Sagittarius season is, I always think, kind of this exhilarating race to the finish of the year when it's a fire sign. So there's this sense of inspiration, and our spirit is dancing right before the sun dies and is reborn at the winter solstice. So Sagittarius is the centaur that likes to shoot its arrow and lives for the chase. And, we're actually having a Mercury retrograde between Scorpio and Sagittarius this year. So those two areas of your life are going to kind of get dug into, and you can ask yourself, what is it that I need to consider that I normally overlook. Mercury retrograde is kind of gives us the opportunity to go deeper and to consider like why we do the things we're doing. And that Mercury retrograde is going to happen from November 9th to November 29th. So I always say to folks, it's nice that it's not like happening over the holiday season exactly, because I'm always like, oh, do not buy your big presents during Mercury retrograde. Don't buy that big computer or whatever it is that you were hoping to buy, because the idea is just that like technology kind of goes wrong, or it's not a good time to sign contracts, or to things can get overlooked, or we have to redo things. I decided to buy a swimsuit during this last Mercury retrograde, and I was like, oh, this is great. They're having a big sale at Speedo, and I'll buy a swimsuit. And it arrived, and it was a baby suit. It's for a baby. It's for a child. like a 18-month-old baby. But Mercury is like the trickster god that kind of shows us like it laughs at our human foibles. So just know that, you can do your holiday shopping a little later this year. You might want to skip those Black Friday sales if you're in the United States, because when Mercury is retrograde, we might think we're buying one thing, but we get it home and it's something completely different. So just to know that the end of summer Virgo season is really big for Virgos and Pisces. We have Libra season, which is very significant for Libra and Aries. And we're going to be having the first Aries full moon without an eclipse in several years. So that's going to feel really nice. And then Scorpio season is really significant for Scorpios and Taurus. We have Uranus, which is the Great Awakener planet that's actually re-entering Taurus on November 7th and finishing up its big transit. It's been there since 2019. And so there's been this kind of destabilization and awakening process that's been happening in Taurus since 2019. And now Uranus is going to be moving into Gemini next year for, quite a long time, 7 years. So it's really significant. And then we have Sagittarius season, which is also big for Gemini folks. And anytime Mercury is retrograde, Gemini and Virgo can expect to feel that more intensely. And the year completes with Capricorn season, which also activates the Cancer, the other side, which is the Cancer polarity. And, Jupiter is going retrograde in Cancer on November 11th. So we're going to take this kind of pause. There's going to be some nice growth in this area of life over the next couple of months. And then when Jupiter goes retrograde, we'll kind of, spend some time revising those big plans. So that is a lot of what I wanted to share with you. I know it's a lot of facts and figures to kind of close out the year, but you can always kind of get more of an accurate reading and sense for yourself and through booking a reading with an astrologer such as myself. And I also really like the Chani app for folks that like to have little notifications on their phone. I think that's a good one. That's like a trusted one. So yeah, any questions about the Astro weather? I'm feeling happy because it's been so bumpy. I just keep telling people, just make it to October, and I think it's going to feel better.
Thank you so much. I took notes and I'm going to write those on my calendar. I have one of those paper calendars.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting because you literally said everything that happened for me since December. And you also mentioned it was quite tough for Cancer and Aries, which I'm both. So cheers to that.
Cheers to you. You survived. Well done. I looked at your chart and I was like, oh, girl, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened, but I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel I just survived this past Mercury retrograde, and there is another one coming up. But I will be meditating on why we do the things we do as you recommended. Laura, thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure.
I know myself and also our listeners are working away with so much inspiration and clarity. It's been such a gift to have your wisdom and presence on the show. Before we go,
Thank you.
if you guys are looking for more ways to incorporate magic and healing into your lives, I invite you all to stay connected and be sure to check out Laura's social medias as well as her website. For more, Laura, I will let you share how people can find you.
Yes. My website, Laura Campagna Astrology, or as you say, Laura Campagna, sounds much nicer, .com. And that is where you can see all my different offerings, upcoming events. I teach free tarot and astrology classes in libraries around Massachusetts. So you can find me there and at community centers in the Boston area. And I also post Astro forecasts on Instagram and through my newsletter, which I send out on the full and new moon. So lots of free, fun information about the stars and the cards and energy healing offerings and opportunities. So I look forward to connecting with you.
As a listener of the show, you will get 15% off any session with Laura using the code Seekers15. Is that at checkout or can people email you?
That will be at checkout. Yeah, you can apply the code at checkout and to any of my services, astrology, tarot, or energy healing.
Wonderful. Links to your social medias and websites will also be posted on all my social media channels. And if you like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram at the handle magicalmara_, and also on YouTube at magicalmara. I'd love to connect with you all. My website is marabrami.com, where you can also book all of my Vortex Healing services. And I also offer remote online weekly group healing. All my links are on newsforthesoul.com, or you can search for Magical Mara Vortex Healing, and I'm sure you'll find me. Stay tuned for more episodes of Seekers of Grace, airing live every second Thursday of the month at noon Pacific time. Until then, remember, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You are love and compassion. Be well, be cool, and be loved.